You got to understand, in the world of business, things are always changing. The business that we are in and the business that we will be in 5 years from now is changing. It's not going to be the same business. So that means that there's, to some degree, a certain level of uncertainty. If you're in a survival mode, you're just going to get by. So meaning the industry that you're in could be growing, could be expanding, but you're not taking advantage because you're in a survival mode. You're not taking advantage of the expansion. In order to start taking advantage of any sort of opportunity, you have to move from survival to what I say is thrival mode, right? Because when you're surviving, you're just trying to get by. You're trying to hit the minimum standards. You're trying to literally just do whatever is necessary to just get by. Let the rent check be met. Let the car payments be met. But hey, there's all these extras, and I'm not going to go the extra mile. Does that make sense? So you cannot be in a survival mode if you're in a place where things are growing and expanding and moving, and you're just trying to get by. So I want to give you a couple of things here to think about in order to move from more of that survival mode into thriving. All right, first thing first, you have to take advantage of change, of uncertainty, right? In order to move into thriving, you got to understand, in the world of business, things are always changing. The business that we are in and the business that we will be in 5 years from now is changing. It's not going to be the same business. So that means that there's, to some degree, a certain level of uncertainty. So you have to be in a place where you're constantly taking advantage of uncertainty. So how can you take advantage of uncertainty? First thing first, you have to change with the times, right? Which is why we're constantly preaching personal development. Hey, you cannot be the same person next year. I'm hoping that you become a little bit more sophisticated next year than you are this year. I'm hoping that you have a little bit more hard skills, where you're able to start using it to your advantage in the world of business. I'm hoping to have, for you to have a little bit more leadership skills so that you can actually oversee and influence and, lead a team. You need to have a little bit better sales skills. You have to take advantage of the fact that since business world is changing and there is uncertainty, you have to change with the times. We were looking at a bunch of houses yesterday. Me and Farid were trying to, entertain the idea of moving back to Orange County. And, I was thinking about this, right? So all these houses are around $2 million. Interest rates today are at the highest levels since they've been in since 2000, right? So meaning for the next generation, and I'm just thinking about my own kid here, if she wants to live here, man, she has to be savage, right? Because for her to make it work in one of the most expensive markets in the country, she has to be able to afford things that we're able to afford now, but further down the road, it's going to be a lot more expensive, right? I mean, listen, guys, almost 8% mortgage rate. Times are changing. There is uncertainty, but here's the thing: a common man, somebody that has a fixed mindset, is going to be like, 8%. That's scary. I don't think I can do it. Well, the minute you start saying things like, I can't do it, I'm not going to change. Well, what you're doing is you're cutting off every possible creative juice, every possible ambition, drive that you have, motivation that you would possibly get to take the steps forward. The minute you say, I can't do it, I got to move to Costa Rica, it's cheaper there. Yeah, that's an option. You can run away, or you can figure out how do you make more money in order to stay in the most expensive market in the country, or one of the most expensive markets in the country. Take advantage of uncertainty. And in order for you to take advantage of uncertainty, you have to change with the times, right? You, maybe 5 years down the road, have to be a lot more sophisticated of a business guy than I am today. Take advantage of uncertainty. Does that make sense? That's the first point. Any thoughts, any questions on this? What do you guys think? Change is scary, and can be to the person that's not willing to change, right? The person that's consistently changing year after year, he welcomes change. He welcomes uncertainty, right? Does that make sense? All right, moving on. If you really want to thrive, if you really want to excel, you got to have a certain level of vision, right? Matter of fact, let's do an exercise. Everybody's taking notes. I want you to write 3 things that you want to accomplish in the next 12 months, right? Write it down. I'll give you 30 seconds. Write down what you want to accomplish in the next, year. Is it, hey, I want to become an owner. I want to become a business owner. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a condo. I want to live by the beach. I want to get married. I want to save $100,000. I don't know. Just write whatever it is that you want to, whatever is important to you. Write 3 things. Now, the next step. Imagine in 12 months from now, you hit all 3 of those goals, right? Next to those goals, write down what is the emotional outcome that you would get, right? Let's just say, I want to buy a house for my spouse. What kind of a feeling is that going to produce in you? Write it down. I want to become a business owner. what kind of a feeling is that going to produce in you? Is it feelings of growth, fulfillment, excitement? Write it down. What are you going to feel? I want to retire my mom. All right, write it down. What would you feel if tomorrow you went to, hey mom, you know what, quit the job, you no longer have to work. What is that feeling going to be for you? Not for your mom, for you. What is that going to be like? Whatever the goal is, if you achieve that goal, what is that going to look like? We're working on number 2 here, vision. Pay attention to me. That second part is the real goal. We are emotional beings. We are looking for an emotional outcome. We back it up with logic and planning, okay? So when you're working on a vision, you have to think about what is the emotional outcome that I'm actually after. That's the real goal that you're trying to hit. We are emotional beings. We are after emotional outcome. And the steps that we want to take to get there, that's the means to hitting that goal. Does that make sense? So if you really want to thrive, you have to work on your vision. And I just kickstarted it for you. Take it one step further if you want. Sit down on it. I prefer doing this at nights usually, where the dust has settled. I'm not emotional. Everything is down. Preferably, everyone in my house is sleeping. That's when I like to work on my vision, right? But if you are doing it right now, you're in the middle of the day, you're making a lot of decisions as it is. I don't expect you to be 100% into this right now, but do this when you're at home. And do this regularly, every 3 months, every 6 months. And I promise you, you're going to start working on your vision and you're going to have a little bit more clarity as to why you want to do what you're doing. Unless you have a vision as to what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, you're never going to really want to give your full 100% because that's your fuel of choice. Emotional outcome is your fuel of choice. Some people will say things like, everybody didn't believe in me. That's why I went after what I did. What are they saying? I wanted to prove these people wrong. The emotional outcome in there was probably I was a little bit pissed off that you didn't believe in me, that you had all these doubts about me, and I wanted to prove you wrong. So I went and I became the self-made man so that I can prove you wrong. Did you guys see what I just did? They were after an emotional outcome. There's a chance that if people didn't believe in that person and they never verbalized it, that person would have never gone after that goal. We are emotional beings. We are seeking an emotional outcome. And the things that we wrote as the part 1 of that exercise was the means to the goal. Does that make sense? All right, next one. You got to be decisive. By the way, one of the most important skill sets that you have to understand and you have to work on for yourself is decision making, right? First of all, decision or being decisive, decision word comes from the Latin word incision. Do you know what that means? It means when you're choosing something, you're cutting off, incision, every other option, right? There's a story that I heard, and I think it's true, but I don't exactly know the details of it. Some guy was trying to take over the island, brought in his army, and when they started kind of like facing the danger of the people living in that island, and everybody was starting to attack them, and they're putting their life in danger, the general of that army that landed in the island decided to burn the boats. Because he was like, hey, you know what? If this army knows that there's no way to get off this island, incision, there's no way out, they're going to fight a lot harder. You probably don't ever have to take over an island by force, but if you're trying to go after your goals, you kind of like have to get into the same mindset, right? Stop having a plan A, and then, hey, if this doesn't work, 3 years from now, I'm going to get into this industry. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to get into real estate. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to get into stocks and bonds. And if that doesn't work, hopefully I can become a crypto millionaire. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try to become an influencer. Don't do that. Most wealthy people in this country focused on one industry, one skill for a long period of time, right? The way you think, though, needs to be changed. You're expecting fruits to come first, but you can't do that. You have to put the roots down. You got to bring the seeds in. You got to plant it. You got to wait 10 years, 15 years, sometimes 20 years before you start to harvest all the fruits of your hard labor. Right? Most people don't think that way. A lot of people think success is kind of like a drive-through Chick-fil-A, right? I want it, I want to get it in the next 7 minutes. And if my meal takes more than 7 minutes, I'm already getting pissed off, I'm already getting a little impatient, and dang it, they just forgot my buffalo sauce. No, you can't think that way. Success doesn't work that way, right? It's more like a crock pot. You want success, you got to put it in, put it overnight, let it season, and 8 hours later is when you get to have your meal. Be decisive. Once you make a decision, you have to be patient around that. But stop coming up with all these different plans, because the minute you know you can get out and do something else, I can promise you, you're never going to be willing to put your 100% in. And by the way, if you go to plan B, you're going to exactly think the same way because your programming is set to the minute it gets hard, get out. Stop fighting, right?